How many people were in part A? Okay. How many people are just in part B to kind of like check it out? Okay, cool. Perfect. Okay, just so we know. Very good. You use the mic. Guess. Yeah. You're far flung over there. Hi, Riverside. All right. Cool. So I just wanted to review the two purposes of CCL, and you've heard this multiple times, so I don't have to spend too much time on it, but it's to create the political will for a livable planet and to empower individuals to make breakthroughs in their personal power. So in general, we feel that politicians respond to power and rather than actually, providing leadership. You've heard that over and over. Nicole was mentioning that. But here's just I'm going to read this off of here. I don't know if I need it. Let me see if I need it, because I kind of hate. Can everybody hear me okay if I talk like this? You good way back over there and over there? Okay, right on. Good. So this is a reading from Charles. Oh, but you need it. There we go. All right. So I knew there was a reason for this. All right. So you got it? Okay. So this reading is from a book called Power and the Law by Charles Reich. And some of you may have heard of Charles Reich before. I'm not sure. Anybody read any Charles Reich? Okay, good. I get to introduce you to this concept. So Charles Reich defined power this way in his book, Power and the Law. It goes like this. Power seems to me pretty much the same thing as freedom. Power is the thing everybody wants the most that they can possibly have of. That is, skiing is power. Sex appeal is power. The ability to make yourself heard by your congressperson is power. Anything that comes out of you and goes into the world is power. And in addition to that, the ability to be open, to appreciate, to receive love, to respond to others, to listen to music, to understand literature, all of that is power. So by power, I mean human faculties exercised to the largest possible degree. So in a way, in a large sense, by power, I mean individual intelligence. Now, when you reach out to another person through the energy or creativity that is in you, and that other person responds, you're exercising power. Now, when you make somebody do something, else do something against their will, to me, that's not power at all. That is force. And force is a negation of power. So this is really part of the DNA here of CCL. This understanding of power as intelligence, of kindness, of understanding, of appreciation, wisdom, right? That's power. And when we can get together, that's an exercise in power. If we're forcing anybody to do anything against their will, that's force, and it's not the way we roll. So to me, that's like one of the key ideas that has like changed my view of how politics should be played. We see force all over the place, on the Democratic side and on the Republican side, both sides of the aisle. There's so much force being played out. And elected members of Congress know this, they feel this, and on some level, whenever you're forced to do something, there is a potential energy there that can be capitalized on. So that's what we're after. So we're a little short on time, and I do want to cover all the bases, but I'm just going to take like 5 minutes right now. I said I wouldn't talk you to death. I said I'd let you guys talk to each other a lot. I'm going to try and do that a little more here in the second half. So right now, if you can think, and this one might be a little more challenging than the previous one. I asked you previously to think of something you loved and that you were connected to that might be lost by climate change, and then share that with each other. Okay? So now what I'd like you to think about is a time in which somebody either empowered you, lifted you up, took you to another level, you did the same for somebody else, or the opposite, where you were the subject of force, where in some way you had to do something that maybe was either, against your principles or against your better judgment, but you felt because of the circumstances you were forced into it. So I'm going to give you a minute or so, 30 seconds, okay? Take a little time. I'm just going to get quiet here, let you reflect, power and force, and then again, I'm going to ask you to get up, move around, and talk to somebody that you haven't talked to before. So I'll give you a minute, then I'm going to tell you to break. Find somebody you haven't talked to, and share with them either a time of you being empowered or being forced. Okay? Quiet begins now. Okay. Thank you. Please wrap that up. And we're back. Before we move on, sometimes when we do this, somebody has a particularly interesting thing that they heard from somebody else and they want to share it. So if somebody told some story of power or force and you wanted to share that, then let's take a moment for that.
Well, the woman sitting next to me, I asked her how she got into the CCL. She said she saw letters to the editor in the local newspaper. Just that. It's a very simple story, but it obviously worked in her case.
Yes, this is a place where we go trawling. So if you write into a newspaper, Mark Tabbert is very famous for this. He reads it's like, oh, that guy, that sounds smart. Let me look that person up and track them down. All right, wonderful. So did anybody else want to share one? Okay.
I had the privilege of speaking with back here, a doctoral graduate from Harvard. He was so inspired by a teacher. He went to his professor and said, I'm applying to all these universities here in California. Not that there's anything wrong with California universities. However, I would dream to go to Harvard. And he said, why aren't you applying to Harvard? And in so saying, with the success of love, he was inspired to do that, and he has succeeded.
Actually, I think it's just so empowering talking about how the difference between empowerment and force feels like. That I am fortunate that I've had a lot of empowerment in my life, but having you bring this up brought me up to something that sort of actually happened yesterday at work, where I'm a state employee and I've been working empowered to create these wonderful data sets and things like that. And I got a call not too long ago from a member of the public that was asked a question like, would you happen to have such and such, this kind of data ready? And I said, you know what, we've got something that's almost about ready to be put out on a GIS layer to the public, and and here's how you can get it. And then my supervisor, who came back from 3 days out of the office, and said, did you know that hasn't been peer-reviewed and vetted at the highest levels of the state? And so we went back and forth and around and even and I explained. We both realized that there hadn't been the greatest communication about it. But he said, I want you to draft an email back to this guy and tell him why he's not going to get this data for 6 months to 2 years, and let me read it before you send it out. And I just realized how empowered sitting here with this discussion. How that feels to have felt so empowered by putting this together and having this interaction with him, and kind of how I'll have to think more about how the emotions really feel to put it into work, to name them, but it just feels squashed and small. And then realizing from the framework of what you're talking about, how to keep someone in that empowerment feeling, and how much more motivating it is, and how much more enthusiasm and getting behind an idea there is. So thank you for the exercise. Yeah.
Well, it's not as good as your story, and it's small, but Deborah and I both were talking about the fact that sometimes it is hard to get up in the morning and feel hopeful with the administration that we now have, and how empowered we feel being here and hearing the marvelous speakers that have been set up. It kind of, you know, I sometimes feel like I have a rope hanging around my neck, and if I move, I'm going to choke. And now I feel like that rope is loosened a little bit, and that maybe there is hope.
Okay, so what we want to do now is we're going to get in groups of 5 to 8, and you're going to make a lobbying team. Okay? Now, I was rushing over here. I went to the wrong place because I thought we were back down there, and then I ran back up here, and I go, this feels just like lobbying, okay? Because it's such a fantastic experience. How many people here have gone to and done lobbying in Washington, D.C.? Okay. So those of you who've done that, and especially if you've done it with CCL, because it's an amazing experience, because we have like a strategy here on how we do it. And you find out about where the tunnels are under the Capitol building and how to get from this building to that building and Cannon to these and that. So you get into this rhythm, and everybody in the organization knows how to do a meeting, right? And so even though you're running in, you kind of like straight your tie, and then you walk in, and like everybody go, okay, you're this, you're that, go, right? So what we're going to do is, in groups of 5 to 8, I'll let you sort yourselves out, but you're going to be a lobby team. So on the lobbying team, we have certain roles that people play. So you start out with appreciation. So somebody needs to tell the member of Congress what you appreciate about them. And for the purposes of this exercise, you can pick who your legislator is that you are talking to, all right? And so somebody has to give appreciation. Somebody has to do what we call the ask. Like, what do we want them to do, right? And in real life, we have an ask like this. Says, introduce or support a bill for a steadily rising fee on fossil carbon-based fuels that returns all revenue to households, and that's our ask. We want you to do this. So you don't want to, get into a meeting and forget, bury the lead and not do the ask. So somebody's just in charge of doing the ask, all right? Then we also have, and anything that I forget, please, somebody else who's done this, chime in, but I think I'll remember them all. You need a timekeeper, because that's one of the things that distinguishes us a lot of times. Is just that little simple kindness thing at the beginning to say, hey, we're really respectful of your time. How much time do you have for us today? And they'll tell you, well, actually, I got to go to a vote. I've only got 5 minutes. Or they're going to tell you, if it's a member of Congress, it's usually 15 minutes if they've scheduled you. And if it's a staffer, it's usually 30 minutes. So you get a little more time with the staffer. But you find out what that is, and then you stick to it. And your timekeeper, their job is to just be respectful of the time. And as the time starts to wind down, get to the end of the meeting, you go, well, we're coming up on the end of the meeting. We can wrap it up. And then when the meeting is going well, when they say, oh, that doesn't matter, they call and say, put those other people on hold and, whatever. And that does happen with us, right? But you want to be respectful of the time, so you have a timekeeper, you have a note taker. So this is the notes that we keep on meetings, and this is like in real life, when we first started lobbying, like when I first started lobbying, like 5 years ago, a lot of people went like, oh, the last person was like, oh, you do the notes like that was something trivial. This is your most sort of senior person. This is like whoever's been around the longest has to take these notes, because this is what goes into the record, and we keep records of every meeting that we've had, so we can go back and you get something on your member of Congress that you're meeting, a fact sheet that runs down everything that's ever been said to them before, what their voting record is, and all of that kind of stuff. Okay? So you won't have the benefit of that today, but know that that is what we do. So you need a note taker, you need a timekeeper, you need somebody to do the ask, you need an appreciation, and then you can have a secondary ask as well. If you feel like the ask is too high, you might know this person, you might, well, what we'd like to do, our secondary ask is we'd like you to come to a town hall meeting. Or our secondary ask is fill in the blank. We'd like you to put on your website some language that says you're in favor of, revenue neutral carbon fee and dividend, or something like that. Okay? So you got a primary ask, you got a secondary ask, you've got a timekeeper, you got appreciation, gratitude, all of that. Did I forget anything? Somebody help me out. Note taker. One more. Oh, it was on my list. Thank you. We do that, right? And we usually have those with us. You have thank you cards with you after the meeting. You personalize it. You sign it. And this is all just a matter of forming relationships, of sincerely expressing your gratitude, because they do work, for these people are called to public service. Yes, there's ego involved. Yes, there's all of that power politics. There are also people who give a great deal of their lives. So we always try and give them their gratitude. Okay? So now, what you're probably thinking is, okay, great, Jim. We're going to do this, but what are we going to ask them? So, now these are laser talks. Now I told you about what I did when I first got into this organization. I said, there are laser talks? Yay, it's a script. I used to be an actor. I know what to do with the script. I go study my script. So I do encourage all of you to go on the website and just print out, if this is the way your mind works and you dig it, print them out and study them like a script, okay? So I'm just gonna give you one. We have multiple laser talks. Laser talks are condensed sort of elevator speeches of like somebody asks you about something and you've got the whole answer in a boiled down, condensed way, okay? So carbon fee and dividend, this is what you guys are going to lobby your member of Congress in a minute, doing a little theater exercise, and we're going to have a member of Congress. One of you is going to have to play the member of Congress. So if you know a specific one, pick the person that you think can best play that character, and sit down and you're going to have a meeting. So here's what you're going to ask for. Carbon fee and dividend. Our revenue-neutral carbon tax works like this. A tax is placed on carbon-based fuels at the source, well, mine, port of entry, and this tax starts at $15 of fossil fuel emitted, of CO2 emitted, and will increase steadily each year by $10, so that clean energy is cheaper than fossil fuels within a decade. All right? Taking notes? You're going to do this in a minute. I'll do that again. A tax is placed on carbon-based fuels at the source. At the source. Why is it important at the source? Because we want it upstream, okay? We don't want to tax it down at the bottom. We don't want to tax it at the pump. Upstream. Tax is placed on carbon-based fuels at the source, well, mine, port of entry. The tax starts at $15 a ton of CO2 emitted and increases steadily each year by $10 so that clean energy is cheaper than fossil fuels within a decade. Goes up $10 a year for 10 years, and then clean fuel will be cheaper. Now, those of you who've been paying attention to energy markets, you'll know like parity is almost there already, so it's even better than just reaching parity. But all the money collected is returned to American households on an equitable basis. Under this plan, 66%, 2/3 of all households would break even or receive more in their dividend check than they would pay for the increased cost of energy, thereby protecting the poor and the middle class. 2/3, poor, middle class. Okay? And finally, a predictably increasing carbon price will send a clear market signal which will unleash entrepreneurs and investors in the new clean energy economy. Sure, and what I want to stress here is don't stress. You'll forget something, you'll do it wrong. It's okay. So, because the other thing that you really need to get into your bones is that members of Congress are happy to see you and they want to hear what you have to say. And if you get it wrong, they don't care. It is not like going and doing a briefing to, the joint sessions of Congress and they're going to grill you. If you don't know something, you cannot know something. You're a citizen in a democracy. And you're expressing what, you feel, know, have learned, and you're just opening up to them. Okay? So, quickly again, a tax is placed on carbon-based fuels at the source. Tax starts at $15 per ton of CO2 emissions and increases steadily by $10 each year for 10 years. After 10 years, clean energy is cheaper than fossil fuels. Again, I know that those of you who've been paying attention, you know this is already happening. It's happening even without any added stimulus. All the money collected is returned to American households on an equitable basis. Under this plan, 66% of all households break even or receive more in their dividend check than they would pay in increased cost of energy, thereby protecting the poor and the middle class. And finally, a predictably increasing carbon price will send a clear market signal which will unleash entrepreneurs and investors in the new clean energy economy. Okay. So actually, that's the other one that I did forget. I knew there was something. So that's separate from the ask. Okay. The ask. Somebody who does the ask says, puts it right out there. I don't care who it is, how much against you think they might be. It's James Inhofe, and he decided he was in a good mood and he wanted to see somebody today and give him a laugh, okay? And you get to ask him. You ask him straight up. It's like you've got to make the ask. We want you to introduce a bill for a steadily rising fee on fossil carbon-based fuels and return all the money to American households. Okay, that's your ask. So you got to do the ask. We have a one-pager. That's called the leave behind. And, you offer that. We don't like to weight them down with a whole bunch of paper. We have everything available in a digital form. If you'd like it, great. So that's, somebody should ask, would you like to see, a REMI study or anything like that? Those are all things that they may want. Staffers often do. They'll say, sure, send me whatever you got. Okay? All right. Now, questions because I'm just going to say, now, get in groups of 5 to 8, plan your meeting, and hold your meeting. Yes? Could you repeat the ask? The ask? Sure. I do have a few copies of this, so I'll kind of walk around while you guys are rehearsing, okay? The ask is introduce Republicans. So here's what we do. We ask one thing of Republicans and another of Democrats, okay? Republicans, we ask to introduce the bill. Democrats, we ask to support the bill. Why? Because there's no point until a Republican is willing to offer the bill in the political landscape that we're in. So we're keeping our powder dry. We're finding, the Republican support that will offer the bill. So if you're talking to a Republican, introduce a bill for a steadily rising fee on fossil carbon-based fuels that return all the revenue to households. Or if it's a Democrat, support a bill for a steadily rising fee on carbon-based fuels that returns all revenue to households. The goal with Democrats and progressives is that they understand it well enough that when the sausage starts getting made, when the bill actually hits the floor, that we understand what makes this so progressive and conservative at the same time. Yes, it's true. So it's progressive. If the money goes back to households, it's highly progressive because folks in the bottom and the middle class, a check coming from the folks who have put all of this into the atmosphere. We've been paying for this already. This is not something new. They talk about you're creating a tax. We've already been paying taxes for the cleanups of Katrinas and all of the disasters and the droughts and the floods and everything. You're already getting taxed. The question is, are we going to let it go so out of control that the taxes tank the whole economy, right? So, yeah, it's a fee in order to fix something that's broken, right? It's that there's a cost that's being visited on the whole economy that we didn't create it. A product did. It's not to punish the companies, but it is to make things fair. Okay, Republicans introduce, Democrats support a bill for a steadily rising fee on carbon-based fuels that return all the revenues to households. Yes? Oh, if I'm talking, I always take account who I'm talking to as far as messaging and language. Absolutely, but that there are plenty of Republicans who love to talk frankly. In fact, I tell you what, a lot of the conversations I have seem, Democrats have taken a beating. They took a beating on, the cap and trade bill that went through, and they remember, they still have wounds, and so sometimes you get more frank discussions out of the Republicans because the Democrats are just feel like their hands are tied and they don't have anybody to talk to, So, yeah, it definitely depends on who you're talking to.
Is this an ask that's actually already been asked?
We ask this, yes, every year. Well, like for instance, Pete Stark offered a bill out of Oregon. He had a bill that was our bill, almost exactly what we wanted. And so when we have somebody who actually has a bill that we really like, then we ask, we'd like you to sign on to that bill when there's one already being offered, right? But right now there isn't one that's out there. There are some, and we have sheets that run down what the climate bills are that are in committee and whatnot, and our take on it. So you don't have to remember all of that. If they ask you about it, you have a little folder that has a lot of that information. If you don't know it, it's like, I can get that answer to you. Our executive director will, whatever, legislative director in DC will get back to you on it. If they're asking those kind of questions, you just hit a home run. It's like, it's amazing. That's what you want. When they ask, they're coming to you and asking you a question. You just make sure you follow up on it, because that's the best. Yes?
Now, would the person who's playing the congressperson not want to sit in on this?
Oh, well, no, it's okay. It's okay. Yeah, it's okay. Just be the congressperson as best you can. If you're going to play the congressperson, you can listen to the whole thing. You can plan it because this is like us practicing, all right? But then when you're playing the congressperson, try to be legit as you can. You know, get into your actor role and go like, okay, you know, what do I care about? Do I really care about what they're talking about? Am I more interested in what I'm, you know, doing? What's going on? So try to get into the role. Yeah.
For the national conference in Washington, do you guys just lobby Republicans or
No.
they lobby?
Everybody.
So it doesn't matter, I would just lobby someone who's from California or lobby.
Absolutely. Yeah, what we do is we give first priority to constituents. So if there's somebody from that area, clearly they should be in the room. And then there's a sorting system that's used on the computer that matches people up, and you get a sheet that shows you all your meetings. Yeah, yeah, absolutely, yes. Secondary ask. So a secondary ask is what you and your team, especially if there's people from their district, you have another ask that you go, well, you know what? My congresswoman is Judy Chu, okay? And she's awesome. And we've had, meetings after meetings, she's been to my house and, she's awesome. But we know that when we do the same ask over and over again, we know what the answer we're going to get is, right? Well, the Republicans aren't offering anything. Am I sure? I'll support. So our secondary ask was for her to put some language on her website that it has to do with, carbon fee and dividend. We didn't get exactly what we wanted, but we got her thinking about it. If she's thinking about it, she has to actually discuss the policy with her people, so that was a secondary ask we came up with. Now, you could come up with any secondary ask. People have had, town hall meeting. Secondary ask, would you have a town hall meeting with us where we talk to people about climate? Secondary ask is something that maybe a little more achievable and takes them one more step in the direction that you want them to go, rather than going from A to Z. They're going from, yeah.
You're only giving us 5 minutes for the meeting. Is Hansen 4:55?
Oh, did we run out of time? Who's the timekeeper on this? Okay, we got 5 minutes? I got 4:30. You got 4:30?